Hello, New Prospect. Welcome to RTB 2021 for April 11th, 2021. Hope you're doing well on this Sunday and excited about today because you may be listening to this after church, but excited to hear our intern Davis preaching in the morning service, and I'm sure he is going to do well. And I know if you're listening to this after the service, I know you were blessed by his exhortations. And if you're doing it before the service, I pray that you will pray for him as he preaches on this day. But our texts for today are Leviticus 15. We're finally finishing up with the cleanliness laws. Then we have Psalm 18, Proverbs 29, and 1 Thessalonians 3, or 2 Thessalonians 3. We're finishing up with that book. So why don't we start with Leviticus chapter 15. So this is ending as I said, the cleanliness laws, and it's specifically talking about cleanliness within the context of specific bodily discharges. And the discharges, I'm not going to get too graphic here, are sexual in nature, and they are both discharges that had to do with life, right? And coming before the life-giving Lord. These things are things that would pollute the sanctuary, and God takes the holiness or the purity of his sanctuary specifically very seriously. And this was just another one of those illustrations of that fact of God's own holiness and what he required of his people. It brings us to Psalm 18. This is a long psalm. You'll notice that it's a Psalm of David that goes 50 verses. And it starts out with an expression of love to the Lord. Now, this is interesting. This is not the Hebrew term ahav here. That is the term that is that covenantal love. This is another term for love. The Hebrews had a real reticence. In fact, you will not find this anywhere in the Hebrew Bible to say, I love the Lord with that term ahav in the Hebrew, which is I have covenant love for the Lord. Probably the best translation of that into the Greek would be agape, that sacrificial love. But for the Hebrew, it's more of that active, faithful, covenantal love. And God instructs us to love him in that way. Deuteronomy 6:5, you're to love the Lord your God, ahav, with all your heart, soul, and strength. But no Hebrew will ever say that. So I think that's instructive to us, but that there's a kind of humility about the Hebrew in the Hebrew faith that says, I will never express my love to God so boldly to say that I love you, saying, I've done all these great, faithful, committed things for you. We are to live that way and then let our actions show that. That's why Peter, and we talked about this the other day, Peter in John 21 couldn't bring himself to say, that he loved the Lord, agape, right? And then the psalm is a royal psalm, so it's expressing the thoughts of the king, and at the end he expresses some confidence of the deliverance of his king, verse 50, and that God will show his loving kindness to his anointed, his Moshiach, his Messiah, to David and to his descendants forever. And this is referring to perhaps the most important text in the entire Old Testament, in 2 Samuel 7, is where God promises David that eternal kingdom and eternal throne, and God says he will not remove his loving kindness from that line, and it was ultimately fulfilled in the person of Christ. And of course, this is pointing forward. Even a psalm like this is pointing forward to God's commitment to that Davidic line to see it fulfilled in the Messiah, the Anointed One. Moving on to Proverbs 29. So we've got two more chapters in Proverbs after this one. And Proverbs 29 deals, again, this is the last of the chapter, by the last of the chapters of the Proverbs that Hezekiah had collected. And I want to focus in on verse 18 here. It says here, where there's no vision, this is the translation I have here, but really it's talking about revelation. The people are unrestrained, but happy. It's probably not the best translation here, but blessed are those who keep the Torah. Uh, and so what this focuses on is the importance of ultimately the revelation of God, the scriptures, the covenant documents for the Israelites, but the scriptures that we have, the New Testament and the Old Testament, for believers today, uh, to the health of the covenant community of faith. Um, because those who keep the law uh, or keep that covenant document will be in right covenant relationship with God. They will be blessed, and if they don't have the Torah preached to them, if they don't have these scriptures proclaimed to them, they will be unrestrained. In other words, um, they will not be following in the will of God. And so this text here points to the centrality of the Bible in a New Testament context, to the health and well-being, spiritually speaking, of the covenant community of faith, the church. So it's a good text and reminder for us today, and that brings us to 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, the final text and the final exhortations of Paul. And here he's targeting, and we've referred to this before, kind of this apathy, even laziness on the part of the people, some in the church, and it's because I think probably some in the church were just sitting around waiting for the second coming. So there was a problem. Some in the church were thinking the second coming's already come. Some in the church were waiting for it to happen, and we're just kind of sitting around and waiting for it. But what Paul says is instead, you need to not grow weary in doing good. In other words, keep working, keep striving, and he targets this undisciplined life that some had taken up, and were actually doing no work at all, and has some pretty harsh things to say about those who were kind of using perhaps the impending second coming as an excuse not to do any labor. Instead, that knowledge should inspire us to work and to labor on behalf of the kingdom. Some choice words on the Apostle Paul's part, and yet he does close with this exhortation and commendation that God will be with you all. And so he ends on a good note, at least. So I hope you have a great rest of the day, and I hope you have a day that ends on a good note as well on this day, April 11th, Sunday, 2021. Hope you have a great rest of the day, and hope you had a wonderful day worshiping the Lord with his people, God's people, here at New Prospect Baptist Church.